morning again. My name is Gerald, and I'm the lead pastor here. I'm so glad that you're here. Good job, Tony Ann, by the way. She's awesome. We can give her a hand. I know. She's just a bundle of energy. She works with your students. If you have a kid from 0 to however old kids get, 18, then she works with them. So they have a great thing going on at Love Kids, right? A couple of doors down. So make sure you check that out. I just want you to remember that's happening. If you don't have kids, just know that they're having like an amazing experience in there this morning. They're shooting like slingshots at each other and stuff like that. So doesn't that sound fun? I don't know if it's at it probably is at each other if it's some boys in there, but they're having a great time, and we just care about creating spaces where all of us can engage with God. And so we try to create a space for our kids that works for them, that fits for them, where they can meet God, they can connect with other leaders. What we do in here is we create spaces. We create spaces in our church. We create an environment in here where we want to invite everyone to come, and so continue to invite people, continue to invest in people around you, and we want this to be a place where you can belong before you believe. In other words, that you can come and explore faith for yourself. And also, if you're someone who has said yes to Jesus and you're consider yourself a Christian, you have an opportunity to take a next step too. And so today we're starting a new series. I'm really excited about it, but it's not even new. We started part 1 of this series back in the spring. It was called Jesus Part 1. Really creative name, right? We talk about Jesus every single week. But what we decided is that, no, let's take some time over the next few years and think about the different aspects of Jesus' life. We want to help you take steps closer to Him. So if you're someone who says, yes, I'm a Christian, we want you to grow closer to Him and know Him even better. If you're someone who's just exploring things, we want you to know who He is, so you can try to decide, is this somebody I want to follow? And so in the first part of this series, we said, this is what His followers look like. And we took 4 weeks and we looked at the different followers of Jesus, and we tried to understand, okay, here's what I'm like, here's what they're like, and here's how we can follow Him better. This time around, we're taking a look at His miracles. Now, the miracles of Jesus are probably some of the most controversial things that He does and says. And before I even go further, I want to give you a little plug here. There's a book that we have called The Case for Miracles. It's by Lee Strobel. Some of you have read The Case for Christ, or even seen the Case for Christ movie that's out there that is on Netflix, I think, right now, and I would highly recommend going to watch that. But this is a look at the miracles from a sort of an intellectual, skeptical point of view, but written by a Christian. And so we have these available for free. Actually, there's only a few copies left, but you want to take one for you, take one for your family, you can grab that at the Info Center. We just want to resource you with some things like that. And so if you are, if you're a rational person who's not a Christian, you've said, I'm not a Christian, but I'd like to think about spiritual things, you probably struggle with the concept of miracles. Now, I also say this, if you're a Christian and you think about things regularly, you might struggle with miracles as well. It's this kind of deal where you're not alone if you have doubts. You're not alone, and we want to talk about those in this series together and get you to take steps and get you to explore those together. Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president of the United States. He was also a founding father. This is a really interesting thing I've realized about Thomas Jefferson. You might already know this. He had his own Bible. And what he did was he took the actual Bible, and he cut out with a pair of scissors every aspect of Jesus' life that contained something supernatural. So he went out and he literally cut it out. He took out all the supernatural acts. He took out all the stories of miracles. He took out the resurrection itself. And he took those and he threw them away, and he created his own Bible. He called it The Life and Morals of Jesus. And he had this Jefferson Bible created where he basically just had his sayings. He just had his interactions on a human level with people because he struggled so much with the idea of the supernatural. He did. And some of us approach faith, some of us approach Jesus in that way so that we take out all the supernatural and we just kind of say he was a great moral teacher. He had a lot of great things to say. I'm just not ready to say that he was God. And if that's where you are today, I respect that. I understand where you are. I want to invite you to consider something else. I want to invite you to take that and kind of just hit pause on that for just a few minutes, and would you consider with me a different way to look at it? If God is real, okay? Let's talk about it like this. If God is real, in other words, if Genesis chapter 1 happened and God created the world, if Genesis 1 happened, and if you're someone who says, I actually do believe in God and I believe that God created this world, I want you to, just think about this, that if God is real, then miracles are possible. Like if God is real, then miracles are actually possible, because if He created this world, then you have to be able to say, all right, then I think that miracles are actually possible. If the first verse in the Bible is true, then every other verse in the Bible is actually believable. And we have to wrestle with it. If God can create, then He is God, and He can do God-like things. And if we skip over the miracles, we actually do ourselves a disservice. If we act kind of more like Thomas Jefferson and we skip over them, then we aren't really representing the real Jesus that we get, at least in the Bible. You have to take it for what it is. You have to study it. You have to look at it for what it is and ask questions about it with what we have in this book right here, not just some Jeffersonian version of faith where we take out all the supernatural and we just think, well, Jesus was a great moral teacher. He was a great example. He said he was just a good guy, and of course we want to be like Jesus. But if you want to be honest, and what I mean is intellectually honest with what we have in the Bible, He cannot just be a great moral teacher. C.S. Lewis was a great writer and thinker and Christian in the 20th century. In fact, he was a skeptic until he came face to face with the truth that he found in God, the truth that he found in the Scriptures. And he had a long process of coming to faith, but once he did, he wrote some amazing material, and one of the books that he wrote was called Mere Christianity. I want to share a quote with you from him, and it's a little bit longer of a quote, but it's, I think, really critical to this idea of miracles and who Jesus is. And here's what he said. Read this with me, okay? He says, I'm trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about Him, about Jesus. And this is what they often say. He said, the really foolish thing is that I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept His claim to be God. That is the one thing, Lewis says, we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things that Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let's not come with any patronizing nonsense about His being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. He says Jesus is either a liar because He claimed to be God, or He's a lunatic because He claimed to be God, or He was who He claimed to be. And those are really our three choices. So if you're skeptical today, I just want to invite you to consider the possibility that He could have done these things. Consider the possibility that if He was God, if God created the world, then miracles are actually possible. Miracles are actually possible. So I want to talk a little bit about why He might have done these things. Like, why did Jesus do miracles in the first place? Because think about this with me. When He did miracles, and there are tons of stories in the Bible, we're going to get to 4 of them here in this series, but there are a bunch of them. A bunch of them. You know that when He walked up to the man at the well who was sitting there for 38 years, had been paralyzed, and He healed him there. Do you also know that there were other people around that man who were also trying to be healed? They were trying to go into this water that they thought had healing powers, and they were trying to go in there. And Jesus said, "Come on, I want you to stand up. You're healed." He didn't heal everybody else around this guy. At least the Bible doesn't record that He did. He just healed him. Why didn't He heal everybody? Why wasn't it just like He came into a room and He just went, boom, healing powers on everyone. I mean, just at once, everybody's healed, right? And we all live happily ever after. That was not His intention, was it? He didn't do that. Think about this. All the people that He healed, Lazarus even, like he raised Lazarus from the dead. The Bible talks about that in the book of John, him raising Lazarus from the dead. You know what happened at the end of Lazarus' life? It's what happens at the end of everybody's life. They die, right? Come on, people, come on. Y'all are awake, right? He died. Lazarus died twice. Everybody that he healed eventually died. That's just an obvious statement, but isn't it interesting? What was Jesus after when he healed people? What was he after when he was doing these miracles? He didn't heal everybody. The people that he healed ended up dying. What was he doing? Well, what you come to find out is this, that they were done with a purpose. These miracles were done for a purpose. They pointed people to who he was, and they revealed to certain people that he was, in fact, God. A lot of the miracles that he did with his disciples right around him, the people that he had chosen to follow him, the people that walked with him through all kinds of things in life, his closest friends. We're going to read a story today where he does this miracle in front of his disciples. There's a reason for that. One of the reasons I think is this, that he knew, okay, in about 3 years, I'm going to be out of here. I'm going to be gone. I'm sending the Holy Spirit to walk with you, but we're trying to establish something here, and I need for you to know who I am. Like, I need for you to know, and I need for you to be able to remember some experiences you had with me, and I need you to remember them in all, that I need to be able to display a little bit of my power and a little bit of my authority and my strength so that you can see, so that when the time comes where you're standing in front of a group of thousands of people, that you won't back away, that you'll be able to step up and say, I saw what happened. I saw him do this. I saw him walk out of the grave alive. I saw him. And I can't deny that, because every one of these followers was threatened to the point of death. And in fact, all of them but one was actually murdered because they believed in Jesus. He knew that was coming. He knew that it was going to be really important that they understood who he was. So let me ask you this. Should you and I expect God to do miracles in our own life? Should you expect him to do the miraculous in your own life, or is it just something that we read in the Bible? I don't know about you, but I've heard stories and seen things that are, I would consider miraculous. Sometimes you can say, well, those are things you can just explain. But I know people who have escaped death who shouldn't have. A lot of us know situations like that, and we can chalk it up to certain things, but I've seen that happen. I know people who have been in the military. I have friends who were in military service who basically have told me stories of divine protection where there's no other, you hear these stories and you're like, there's no other way that this could have happened except God was protecting them. I'll tell you one smaller example. My daughter Bailey is a sophomore at App State, and she injured herself last year running. She said in 2018, the very beginning of 2018, she goes, I'm going to run 1,000 miles this year. And she wasn't a runner, okay? So I'm like, okay, you should do that. Go for it. And she did. And she hit 1,000 and she kept going. She ran 1,200 miles last year. That's just lunacy right there. That is crazy. So guess what? She hurt herself. And she dealt with it all year. It's been over a year that she's got this torn labrum in her hip. And so we finally discovered what it was. It took a long time, a lot of physical therapy. We finally discovered what it actually was through an MRI, and they said, well, you're going to need surgery. And so we went and saw the surgeon, and the surgeon was like, yep, we definitely need surgery. It's going to be okay, but they're like, hopefully we can schedule. And I'm thinking, we need to get it scheduled so that she can come home and do that surgery right after she gets home from college, and then rehab here, and then go back. She's in Boone. It's real hilly. She don't want to do rehab up there. It's going to be impossible. She's in a lot of pain. All these things going on. So I'm like, we've got to have this surgery in December. And actually, it's got to be like around December 13th. That would be ideal, because that's the day after she gets home from her final exam. And we called them last week, and they're like, don't have any dates. Don't have any until January 16th. That's the first date we have. Oh, my goodness. And, she can't do that, so she's going to have to now wait until May, and she's in a lot of pain with it and all that stuff. And so we're going, okay. And I said, Bailey, look, let's pray. We're going to pray for something really specific. We're going to pray for a cancellation to happen in December. And we're just going to ask God for something really, really specific. We'll just see. I don't know, but we're just going to see what happens. I've got a men's group that I meet with on Thursday mornings, every other Thursday morning in Davidson. And I told them that this week. And interestingly, we're also doing a series in that group on miracles. We talk about a different miracle of Jesus each time. And so we've been talking about what are we asking for God to do in our own lives. I said, look, I got some real specific, guys. This is this last Thursday. I said, will you please pray that we have a cancellation by the end, but sometime in December, because we really need to get it in. And then we got insurance. Like, I don't want to carry it over. We got like, it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it in December. All those kinds of things going on, right? So I said, no, it's a long shot. So I leave that meeting and I get a phone call, and I missed the call. I had to listen to the message, and I called the scheduler back from the surgery scheduler. And I talked to her about the situation, and she had already talked to my daughter. And I said, we really are looking for something in December. And I gave them all the reasons I just gave you. She said, I know, but it's almost going to be impossible. She's like, I don't, I'm trying to just keep it real here. It's going to be tough to get that date. And so she said, well, here's what I can do. I'm going to email somebody and I'm going to check, but I just don't think it's going to be possible. So I said, okay, we'll do what we can do. And 20 minutes later, she calls me back. And she says, literally, I'm not kidding, the words out of her mouth were, this is actually kind of a miracle. That's what she said. We have a slot, and it's on December 13th. Can you guys do that? And I'm like, I just freaked out on the phone. I don't know this person. I'm like, I've been praying for that. I was told the lady, I was like, I've been praying for this all week. It's crazy. And she's like, I know, God's good. And then we had this little I don't know who this lady is, but her name's Deirdre. Me and Deirdre had a little connection going on there, and we were celebrating God together. Now, I know, right? I know we can explain that away as a coincidence or just a great thing that happened and maybe not a miracle. I look at that and I'm like, I think that God intervened right there. Does he do that all the time for me in my prayer? No, I wish he would. I say that, but I think in his goodness, he's probably going, you really don't want me to answer all your prayers the way you want them, actually. But I wonder for you and for me, here's a question for you when it comes to your own personal beliefs, and I want you to answer it. You can answer it to yourself, but it's like one of those surveys where you can check off highly likely or somewhat unlikely or highly unlikely. Are you expecting, do you expect, should you expect, can you expect God to do something miraculous in your own life? Are you highly likely to say yes, I expect him to do things like that in my life? Or are you on the other side going, it's highly unlikely that God's going to do anything miraculous, even that comes close to a miracle in my life? And maybe you're more like, I'm just kind of hoping he will. I've got hope, but I'm not really high up there on the confidence level. Or I think there's a slight possibility that I'm going to just say a slight possibility that God will do something like that, but I don't know. Or I just feel like there's no way. That's a dumb thing to think about. It's all coincidence, and there's no way God's going to do a miracle in my life. Let me invite you to answer one more question, and then we're going to dig into what this story has to say together. Maybe God is waiting for you to do something first. Might he be waiting for you to do something first? There's a story in the book of Matthew, chapter 14. Matthew's one of the Gospels. The four Gospels share the stories of Jesus. And they're all from different perspectives, but they don't contradict each other. They all come at different angles, and they're beautiful when you read them together. There's a story that was told in the book of Matthew 14, book of Matthew chapter 14, and I want to share it with you here this morning. Okay, let's read it. Now, Jesus had been teaching a lot of people. He'd been serving a lot of people. And so it says immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. So he tells his disciples, go get in the boat. I'm going to deal with these people, and then I'll come back. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. And later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. I think this is interesting for a few different reasons. First of all, Jesus sends his disciples away. And I kind of think he was tired of them, like when you're really tired of being with people that you're with all the time. Like say, your family or people that you are your friends, but you're done with them for a while. I feel like he was like, just go, right? Just go, get in the boat. I need to do something, and I'm not even bringing you along. And I love what he does. He goes and he prays. He doesn't even bring somebody as like a witness to what he said to God, or how that even works, I don't know, because if you believe Jesus is God and he's out praying, is he talking to himself? You know what I'm saying? Like Jesus, hey, Jesus, like him looking in the mirror and talking, but he's out praying. He reconnects with the Father, and it really does show his humanity that he has to go away and pray. He steps away from the crowd. He even steps away from his closest people, and he goes off onto the mountain, and he prays. I think this shows us one of the first things to understand about miracles is that prayer makes miracles possible. Prayer makes miracles possible. There's no miracle, there's no supernatural without prayer. It would be like trying to drive to California with no tank, no gas in your tank. It's like trying to get somewhere without any fuel. Prayer makes miracles happen. And it's amazing. Jesus goes off to pray, and there's different aspects of prayer throughout this whole story, but he goes off to pray, and it's not for show. He just goes by himself, and while he's there, the boat is getting pushed away, further and further away, because wind is coming at it, and it's pushing the boat away. You ever been out on the lake, and you've gotten pushed on a windy day? You've really gotten pushed hard? We were paddle boarding one day, and rookie mistake, we took the paddle boards out, and it was a windy day, and we went downwind first. You know, and that was great. Like, we go downwind, it's like smooth sailing. This is awesome. And then I realized, and I got my kids out there, I realized we got to turn around. We turn around, and it was not awesome. It was a fight. It was just working so hard, and there were tears and crying and gnashing of teeth and all these things. You know, we were just paddling, and there was a moment where I didn't think we were getting back. Like, we were making no headway at all into this wind. And so that's the kind of wind that's happening. It's pushing the boat out and away from Jesus, pushing that boat away. And so that is all going on. And then Jesus, it says, they see Jesus walking out on the water. You know, that one thing to pay attention to is that the miracles that Jesus performed always meet a need. They always meet a need. And so here comes Jesus walking with the wind, and they're kind of against the wind. And it says, shortly before dawn, he goes out to them walking on the lake. The rest of the story goes like this. It says, when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. Of course they were. It's a ghost, they said. And they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Now, I don't know if he's sarcastic in that moment. Like, what's the tone that you read that with? Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, maybe it's just honesty, right? Tell me to come to you on the water. Can you imagine, by the way, you know how it is, if you played sports and your coach was talking to you and then he leaves the room, the conversation completely changes. And who knows what was going on in the boat when Jesus wasn't there. But I'm sure that all kinds of things were happening, all kinds of stories were being told, or jokes were being said, or inappropriate things were happening, or they were fighting, or who knows what Peter was saying. But Jesus comes to them on the water, and Peter says, hey, tell me to come to you on the water, Jesus. And guess what Jesus says? Come. Come. There's one word. Come, he said. And Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. And then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. You know, when you're in a tough situation, there's fear everywhere, isn't there? I mean, there's fear, there's terror even. They were terrified, it says. But there's just fear. We're afraid. And I think that when you're in a tough situation, it's easier to handle fear, first of all, if you just acknowledge it, if you just acknowledge the reality of it. Because we want to pretend that faith is the absence of fear. No, faith is actually the acknowledgement of fear and the ability to walk forward anyway. And sometimes we got to acknowledge that there's fear that's present and that you're afraid of what's going on. You know how many decisions you make and I make out of fear? I think it's a lot. I think it's probably more than we would admit to. You know? I said this last time in this morning's worship experience, and I had a lot of people nodding then too. I just think that there are so many decisions that we make out of fear. Don't underestimate fear, but don't let it determine your response. Don't underestimate it, right? But don't let it determine your response. Jesus is always encouraging. A lot of places in the Bible when he speaks, he's saying the same words again. Don't fear, take courage. It's I. Don't be afraid. Don't fear. Why did he say that? Because there's a lot of fear going around that he had to just try to cut right through. He said, it's me. It's me. I'm here. Don't be afraid. And then here comes Peter. And Peter says, hey, if it's you, tell me to come out there with you. You know, Peter goes all in, right? He pushes all the chips to the middle of the table. He says, if it's you, can I do that? Like, can I do that? And he has the gall or I don't know what it is to ask, Jesus, bring me out there with you. And I don't know if Jesus just kind of chuckles, you know, like, all right, let's go. Let's go. You and me. Let's go right now. You know that Peter, I think there's a huge part of him that embodies what's in all of us. This desire to do something more, this desire to be something greater, this desire to do something great with our lives. And Peter has that so much going on, and I think Jesus sees that and he loves it. I think he loves that about Peter. He has this desire to do something greater with his life. So let me ask you this. I know you have that in you. I see that in you. Other people see that in you. What do you want to see in your life? What is that thing? Is there a step that God is asking for? Do you want to see growth in your relationships or growth in your marriage? Do you want to see better, deeper friendships? Do you want to step into a career where you feel like, I want to have meaning? Are you in a tough spot right now? You just find yourself in a tough place and you need help beyond just you trying to figure it out. Do you want to start something right now? Or do you need to stop something right now, but you're not sure how that's going to happen? God will consistently call his followers to greater steps of faith. I just think this is true. I've talked to a lot of people recently about this, and people who are older and wiser than me that confirm this, that if you're really walking in faith, if you're really walking along in faith, you know what's going to happen? Unfortunately, life doesn't really get easier. Now, we want it to get easier. We want our decisions to get easier. We want things to be safer and more comfortable. But you know what I see in people that are following Jesus? Their decisions get harder. Their decisions get bigger. Their faith steps, when they took this faith step when they were younger, now God's saying, I got a bigger one. Guess what? Okay, I met you there. Guess what? I got a bigger one for you to take. And we want to go, I don't want it to be that way. I do not want it to be that way. And God continues to say, no, but trust me. Are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust me? And that step of faith keeps getting bigger. When we just want that step of faith to get smaller. And God will consistently call his followers to greater steps of faith. And I'm borrowing a phrase from John Ortberg here. If you want to go read his book, it's an awesome book. But it's this: if you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. If you want to walk on water, you got to actually get out of the boat. Jesus says, come, but he doesn't yank him out, does he? He says, come on. If you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. And so Peter does. Can you imagine that? He steps out, and Peter is doing the same thing Jesus did. He is walking on water. Now, Peter was a fisherman. He lived on the water. And I'm going to guess because he was a fisherman, his biggest fear of dying was probably drowning. Right? He walks on the water with Jesus. He has a moment where he's doing it. Can you imagine that? And then he feels that wind blowing. Feels a little stronger when he's outside of the boat for some reason than when he was in it. He feels the waves hitting up against his leg, and he's looking at Jesus, but he just gets distracted, and so he looks down, and he looks at the water crashing around him, and he feels the wind, and he starts to sink. I wonder how many of you feel like you're sinking right now. We're really good at keeping the facade up, but I wonder how many of you feel like I'm sinking. And to be honest, I've taken my eyes off of Jesus, and I'm looking at everything, and it's just making me sink even more. And I wonder how many of you have sunk at some point in your past, and you feel that sense of like it's all over. And it's hard to not feel that way when you feel that way. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to talk yourself out of that when you're there. When you're feeling something that emotional and that deep, it's hard to think it's going to get better. It's hard to think it's going to be different than this in a little while. It's hard to do anything but seeing yourself sinking and feeling yourself sinking and him thinking, I'm getting ready to drown in this water. I'm sinking. And Jesus reaches out. You want to sink fast? Take your eyes off of Jesus. You want to sink quickly? Take your eyes off of him. Jesus reaches out. He pulls him close. And he's like, you almost had it, man. Like you almost had it. Why did you doubt? And it's almost this endearing phrase. It's almost just like, why did you doubt, man? You had this. And I can see Peter going, all right. Let me try that again, right? Like, let's do it again. Let me jump back in the boat. Let me do that. And Jesus is like, no way, man. No, maybe next time. Or let's let somebody else try or whatever. But no. He says, why did you doubt? Let me say this, like your faith plays a factor in these things. It does. Your faith plays a factor, and Jesus is always saying, I want your faith to grow. Almost every time when the miracles happen, he's encouraging somebody to grow in their faith. He's saying, why did you doubt? Why didn't you trust? But I want to say this too. Miracles are about the strength of Jesus more than they are about the strength of your faith. You may have heard this in different churches or different places. I want to make sure you hear this clearly. It's not always going to happen the way you want it to just because you have faith. And if you were praying for something and you felt like I just have faith and it didn't happen, it's not because necessarily you didn't have enough faith. It's not always up to you. But we got to do our part. And there is this mysterious aspect of what our faith and his power do together. It's always Jesus' top priority that the faith of his followers grows. He wants your faith to grow. Does that mean he's going to answer everything the way you want it? No. He's sovereign. He's in control. He didn't heal everybody, remember? He only healed a few. We can ask for that, and it's okay to ask for that. That's not always his goal. Sometimes it is. That's not his ultimate. Was that his ultimate goal with the people that he healed? No. His ultimate goal was that they trusted him, that they grew in him, that he was able to display his power through them. It's his top priority that your faith grows, that my faith grows. Now, let me ask you this. What boat right now are you sitting in? Because we're all sitting in a boat. It's much easier to stay there. How comfortable is it for you if you're a student right now, like if you're in high school, you're in middle school, you have friends, and maybe you're feeling like, I got friends, I got a good group of friends, I got college later, I got a great home, I got decent grades, I'm comfortable right now. Feels comfortable, feels safe. Maybe in your marriage, you're thinking, I got a good marriage, it could be better. I'm not going to lie, but we're comfortable right now. Or I got a job and it's okay, it's paying the bills, but it's not my dream job, but it's okay, and I'm pretty comfortable right now. Let me ask you this. What's your dream? The thing that if God were to get involved, if God were to make it happen, that it would happen. Like, what would you do? What would that look like for you? Maybe for some of us, it's like, I got to just have healthy relationships. Because I'm so broken in my life, I got to have healthy relationships. Or I need financial security. Or I've got this dream career path, and I don't know if it's going to happen, but man, if God were to come in and do everything, then I would do this. Or I want to start something, I want to write something, I want to sing something or perform something, and then there's this but, da-da-da-da-da. What is that thing in your life? We got to not be comfortable in the boat that we've built. There's a difference between being at peace and apathy. And we got to not get comfortable with the boat that we've built. So often we get we've got the boat and we've kind of outfitted the inside of the boat really well. We've got our cushion over here. It's comfortable where I am. It's comfortable in sort of mediocrity, right? We can make that feel really good so that we don't ever have to take a step out But God wants to do more in you. And if you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. Like if you want that for you, you've got to get out of the boat. You've got to be willing to take a step. And he's saying, come. He's not yanking you out into the water. He's just saying, come on, come on, come on. You ever around anybody that is in their last days of life? Or maybe they're even like just in the about to die. You know what you never hear from somebody there in that place? They never say, I wish I'd taken less risks. Like, I wish I'd played it safer. They never say that. They say the opposite. They're usually like, I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd taken more risks. I wish I'd gotten out of the boat so many more times than I did, but I just played it safe. I was just afraid. I was afraid of the unknown. I was scared of what that might do, or what would it have looked like to have started that thing or stopped this thing or whatever. And so I just didn't do it. I just stayed comfortable. I just stayed where it was. And God is looking at us and going, you've got so much more to you. When Peter was struggling and he was sinking, I think Jesus was looking at him and going kind of like stepping out of the scene for a minute and looking at him and going, seriously, Peter? Like you're flailing around, you're getting ready to sink. You're not going to die. And he's probably thinking, I got so much more that you're getting ready to do that you don't even know about. Like, I need you to step in front of the people in Jerusalem, thousands of people, and preach about me. I need you to be this rock in my church. I need you to be one of the leaders of this movement. You think I'm going to let you die right here? And so often when we think it's the end, God's saying it's just the beginning, man. You know, it's so often like your perceived ending is actually God's beginning. It takes us stepping out of the boat to do that. I'm going to close with this. I'm not going to close with a poem today. How about that? I don't ever read poetry. But Dylan Thomas, I came across this a couple of years ago, and this is actually in the movie Interstellar, all right? So I'm going to be honest. But I love this. I love what he says. Poet from the 20th century, he says this: do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning. They do not go gentle into that good night. You know what that says to me? That if you want to walk on water, you got to take a step. You got to take a risk. You got to push ahead. You got to fight through the mediocrity, the apathy, the feeling of it's not safe, it's dangerous. You got to fight through that and step out. Where do you need to step out of the boat today? Like, where is it for you in your life that you need to take a step? You need to take a risk. You need to have some faith. You imagine a church full of faith walkers. I mean, people who just step out in faith all the time. God says, I'm going to do great, great things through you. I need you to step into this with me, though, for this to work. He's saying, come. He's saying, come. That's your invitation and mine today. Will you pray with me? Let's pray about this together. God, there are some in the room, I know that there are some in the room who have doubts about your miracles, and that's okay. But I pray this morning, God, that as we think about not only just the amazing sayings that you have in the Bible, not just the wisdom, but the fact that it says you did supernatural things, and we can't just clip that out, that you would help us understand, you'd help us grasp it, you'd help us dig deeper into it. Maybe some of us today need to, for the first time in a long time, just respond by stepping out of the boat. That boat being our own truthfully selfish ways of living, our own place where we try to figure everything out on our own, and we step into the water where you're there. And that's where the action is. That's where the life is, God. That's where you are. And so right now, you're giving us an invitation to just come. Not to have it all together, not to have it figured out, not anything other than just come. Some of the boats we're stepping out and stepping into, and some of the things we're stepping into are places where we need relationships healed. We need maybe financial security that we've not had. We need health. God, there are places we are stepping into today. And so I pray as my friends here consider where's the place where you need to step, that you will make that clear and that you will give them boldness today and courage to step in faith today. We pray this in the mighty, mighty name of Jesus. Amen.